squeeze this punch to have you both here because I have a lot of roots back in the Bay Area, including Classical Archives, who's one of the sponsors of this interview. We are a small classical service, download and streaming, that actually has library attention to the actual works. So you can hunt by composer and work and so on and so forth. And even you, Maestro Heggie, are there. So with your bio and everything. So and we have a lot of folks with the opera there in San Francisco also who come to our site. So we're kind of a Bay Area organization. But nationally, I represent Moulange Me, and we also wanted to interview you because this is such a great and unique piece. So first, I want to thank Zachary Gordin. Is that correct? Who is the general director of Festival Opera in Walnut Creek, and of course composer Jake Heggie. Sorry, I always make it. And now I've made it to your face, so I'm humiliated. So, and of course, internationally known composer Jake Heggie. So it's really great to have you both, because when I read about this project, you know, there's a lot of projects bubbling up right now to kind of get the audience back to opera, which is going to be tough for us because a lot of them are over 65 and they've gotten used to their streaming concerts, right? But this particular offering just struck me right at the core of what opera is, especially in the Bay Area, where we have a more of a song-based tradition than a purely dramatic one, you know, as New York or something like that. Not that the Bay Area isn't full of drama, but you know what I mean. We appreciate just the human voice for the human voice. There are many recitals in the Bay Area all the time. So all that being said, I just kind of curious, Zachary, what inspired you to do this? Or is this a collaboration between the two of you? Or because it's kind of out there, but it's also in there. And so that's why I appreciated it. So
Sure. So it's kind of a combination of all of the above. So the inspiration really came from, first of all, Jake's music, and then the stories that they're telling. So I had become familiar with For a Look or a Touch when we did an iteration of it in Seattle for Music of Remembrance called Out of Darkness. And Jake asked me to cover the role of Manfred. And so I learned it then. And I was familiar with Camille Claudel Into the Fire because my dear friend Diana Tash did a staged version of it in SoCal years ago. And I got to see that and sort of fell in love with that work, which is originally a song cycle. I think all three of these pieces were song cycles, right? And so the last piece, or which is actually the first piece on our program, At the Statue of Venus, I had seen on YouTube videos and I'd heard sung before, and it just really came to me that I have the perfect singer to stage this. And so I had these three little pods, and I was talking to Jake about the possibility of joining them into something that was cohesive and meaningful and had a beautiful story arc. And it just was that aha moment between the two of us. So, Jake, do you want to tag on anything?
Well, I would like to also say Zach has sung my opera Dead Man Walking before as well. So when was the first time you sang that score?
Dayton, 2015.
Okay, so 6 years ago. And so he had a familiarity with my work and my dramatic and theatrical ethos from back then. And what I was totally taken by surprise when Zach proposed this. And he had selected these three pieces, and it instantly made sense to me because they're all quests and journeys toward wanting to belong wanting to belong somewhere. And it's a theme that's pretty common through my work, is this yearning to be accepted, to belong, to connect, as we all do. And it's to be loved and feeling whether you're worthy of that love or not. And so I thought the matching of these three, I probably would never have thought of it. It took Zach from an outside perspective to bring it all together, but it makes total sense to me as a triptych. And I'm really excited because the performers are fabulous. And I haven't talked to the director yet. I'm dying to see what the production is going to be like, but there's such heart associated with it. So I'm really, really, really thrilled about it.
Yeah, they're very deep cuts into your works, actually. You know, at the Statue of Venus, you know, with Terrence McNally, that piece is so intimate, you know, and it just grabs you because of its intimacy, you know, because it's you know, it's what we all do, but you've never seen it depicted.
Well, that was the genius of Terrence McNally. You know, I was so lucky to work with him many times. And, you know, one of the earlier casualties of COVID, sadly, but what a legacy he gave to all of us. And the Statue of Venus was originally written to open the new Denver Opera House, the Ellie Calkins Opera House in Denver in 2005. And it was originally going to be composed for Renee Fleming, who actually wound up not being able to do it, but she was who I had in mind for it. And she's been a friend for ages. But it was great fun and a real journey to doing it. It was originally commissioned to be like a 10-minute piece, and it's 24 minutes long. It's a chunk, okay?
Which was a very good call. Such a good call. Yeah.
No, much to the surprise of the people who had commissioned it.
No, that's exciting. It's like, oh, it's a mini opera. It's like,
it is.
What do you expect?
It's a big sing for the soprano too. So it's a chunk, you know, but it's enormously entertaining. And it's the story of a woman who's agreed to go on a blind date, and she's agreed to meet this guy by the statue of the ideal goddess of love, you know. And it isn't until she gets there that she realizes, oh God, what have I done? And what am I wearing? And she stresses out about her clothes, and she stresses out about, is that him? Is that him? Look at those women staring at me. And, you know, it's that intensely vulnerable place, but remembering, you know, and wanting to be loved, wanting to connect with someone, a possible romantic partner, a possible life partner, or just some fun, but also just yearning to be connected and seen for who you are instead of what you wear or how you're perceived. And it's brilliant classic Terrence McNally writing, and it inspired, I think, a beautiful score. So I'm very proud of the piece.
Yeah, and it's such a unique piece. I'm everyone who sees it is going to have a really great experience, because, you know, it's not often that we get a soliloquy from a soprano anymore about something very, very personal like that we all go through again, you know. But that's what the beauty of it. So I found that opener just to be incredible. And then of course Into the Fire, Camille Claudel, you know, that's a stunning piece, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah,
and it was originally composed for Joyce DiDonato in 2012 and the Alexander String Quartet to celebrate their 30th anniversary. So I had seen the movie of Camille Claudel back in 1989, I think, with Isabelle Adjani and Gérard Depardieu, and it affected me so deeply that I knew at some point I would want to do something about her. I didn't know whether it was an opera, a song cycle, or what it was. And so this dramatic piece emerged when this commission happened, and Joyce said she was all in. And Jean Shear, my brilliant, you know, writing partner, Jean, who we've done so much work together, and he really dug into her life and her work and created this scenario where it's the day Camille knows she's going to be taken to the asylum. She was committed to an asylum by her family and spent the last 30 years of her life there and never sculpted again. And so it's the morning, and she's looking and discussing this day and with her sculptures and with the ones that she hasn't destroyed, because the actual morning she was taken away, she had destroyed about 60% of her work because she was afraid that Rodin was going to steal it. Right. She had become very paranoid. And so Jean set up this scenario where she addresses different sculptures, and we learn about her life and as she relates to these sculptures and what she's going through. Jean is he's brilliant at doing this. And it was very inspiring.
No, I loved his writing, on Moby Dick. I've loved his writing in everything you guys, because it, again, cuts back to the humanity of what it's about, and I think that's what great storytelling is, that's why, Zachary, I was so impressed with the putting together of these stories, because there is an underneath thread too, for a look or a touch, of course, takes me back to that Broadway play Bent. Which was riveting, when I mean, it was one of the first plays I saw as a young teen, still frightened in the closet. And I just remember sobbing, feeling that feeling. And this piece invokes that same kind of nature, I feel. What was your inspiration for, for a look or a touch?
Well, there's a great organization in Seattle called Music of Remembrance and it's run by a brilliant woman named Minna Miller. And she has made it her business to tell stories of voices that were silenced during the Holocaust, whether that be creative voices, performers, whatever, and different journeys. But she didn't just limit it to stories that we might already be familiar with. And she had always wanted to do something about the persecution of gays during the Holocaust. And she approached me about doing the piece. I was deeply honored. And at that point, it was supposed to be a song cycle for tenor. And I started doing research and looking for texts from just after the war or during the war that might have something to do with this. And I was sort of horrified to find that nothing existed because of paragraph 175, which was in the German code, the German law that made being homosexual or homosexual acts illegal. So even after the war, gays were illegal. It was not legal to be gay. So a lot of gays fled or went into hiding or got married. And so Bent was one of the first plays to really deal with this. But Minna wanted to go into it deeply with a musical work. And so Jean and I had to find, well, what's going to be the right, Jean Shear, my writing partner again, to find what's the best way to tell this. And pretty soon we realized, well, the tenor dropped out and then it was a baritone. And then we realized we really needed it to be a dramatic work. And Jean found a documentary called Paragraph 175, which I highly recommend watching. It's extraordinary, by the same team that did the Times of Harvey Milk and won an Oscar for that documentary. Yeah. And in that film, you see a lot of men and women in their 80s finally able to tell about what happened to them, because no one wanted to hear, and it was illegal to talk about it just after the war. Right. And so one of them was a man named Gad Beck, and he was connected to a young man named Manfred Levin, who had actually written a journal of poetry and given it to Gad before his entire family, he and his entire family, were taken to Auschwitz and murdered. And Gad survived. So we imagined this scenario where Gad has been trying to avoid really facing what happened, what he lost. And Jean, through paragraph 175, introduced a lot of stories of events that are possible scenarios. And so Gad is visited by the ghost of Manfred one night. It's a dark night of the soul where he's finally confronted with the ghost of his 19-year-old lover who disappeared. And they share these stories. And Gad is an actor and Manfred is a singer, because music has disappeared from Gad's life, essentially, because he can't embrace the past or memory. And that's the setup. And I think Jean came up with a really powerful script and scenario, and it elicited a really powerful score. And I wanted to say another thing about Terrence and Jean that makes them great librettists is they always leave room for music to give us the emotional content. It doesn't just depend on the words. You know, if a libretto depends entirely on the words to be understood, it's not a very good libretto. It has to demand music in order to be realized emotionally.
The subconscious, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The things that can't be spoken.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so much of what we say now too. If COVID's taught me anything in terms of personal reactions, is that less is more. Now, Zachary,
got that right.
Yeah, right. I know. I think that all the time. At the pharmacy, I'm all like, "How are you today?" I'm not. I'm like, "Hi." No, none of that. All that's the new time. It's a new
Yeah.
era, right? Now, Zachary, you're
Indeed.
singing in the final piece. Now, this is it's a piece you sung before, correct?
Yeah, so I didn't perform it, but I had it prepared. We went through the rehearsal process, and it's been marinating in my brain for, what is it, 5 or 6 years now? So,
Mhm.
5 years. So it feels right. And of course, Jake is so good to baritones. If your voice
Love
can
the
sing his
baritone.
music, it's just lovely.
Jake and Verdi.
Kind of. And
I accept.
those are my
Okay, I
jams.
accept.
So yeah. The beautiful thing I think about these three pieces together, I mean, we're talking thematically, they all come back to love. They all come back to um, the human drive for the acceptance of each other, of ourselves, the vulnerability, but really the heartbeat, I'm going to use that, is love. And so you look at each of these stories and you look at each of these experiences, and it's just so touching. And it can be through the drama or the pain or also the humor. I mean, one of the great things about Jake and his collaborators are that they find ways of squeezing humor into the most serious moments. And I think it makes it so much easier for the audience to assimilate when you're not being constantly reminded that humans can be horrible. I think
Well, no,
it's a wonderful thing.
we
It's
all
a
need to
great
laugh,
thing.
you know,
Yes.
and you know, I mean, I think that was something I learned with Terrence McNally in Dead Man Walking, that there are a couple of laugh out loud moments in Dead Man Walking that people aren't expecting, and yet it's so human and essential. You know, we go to humor to comfort us in dark times, and it reminds us of what is lost, you know, in a drama. It reminds us of what's at stake and what has been lost. So it's very important to have that human element of humor through there. Zach, I mean, I actually have a question for you. So, I know this is your interview, Joe.
No, go for it. I love it.
It's going to take it off the rails.
It is such an emotional roller coaster for a Look or a Touch. And it's not like another piece because there's an actor, and you're doing all the singing, and it's a big sing. You sing, is it 6 major arias?
Six plus one. Yeah.
Yeah, 6+1.
Yeah.
And you know, and it's a lot, and it's very emotional, and it's big singing, which is more than most operatic roles. I mean, most operatic roles are 25, 30 minutes max, you know, of actual singing. So this is a big sing.
Well, you said it. Roller coaster was a really good, even emotionally, like it's just all over the place. Yeah.
So how do you prepare for that?
Yeah.
A lot of time spent reading the libretto and really doing as much research on the people that I'm talking about as possible. I think for me, the vocal part is the easy part. The voice works. And so I can just, if I know what I'm saying, it does it. So the groundwork, the foundational work is definitely in the human element of what we're talking about. Because then when you know the context of what you're saying and the emotional weight it carries, whether it's something that's very heavy, like the story of Joe, for instance, or whether you're singing about going out and having a crazy night at a bar, which is another aria that I'm doing. You know, the idea of the situation informs your breathing, informs how you produce the sound. And so all that links up. And I find it's easy when the storytelling is laid out as well as it is. My job's a lot easier. So,
but then you have to look into the eyes of the actor and live all of this. You know, that's challenging.
The hardest part for me, because I'm a sentimental fool, is not crying. And so those moments that are really, really deeply loving, or when someone's talking about the magnitude of loss that comes up in this story, it's, you know, you have to have this sort of clear, slightly desensitized but cued in approach to it. Otherwise, you crack the dam and all the water just comes out. We don't want that. We're not here for that.
Your throat will close, you know.
Right.
You get choked up, you know. We can't have that's where we do need the illusion, you know. And you're in an interesting position, Zachary, because you sing and you're the general director of the company, so you have that kind of more intimate touch with it. I'm sure, you know, you've done recitals for the company last year, I believe, and since you've come on, and so the audience really knows you. They have a personal connection to you, which I think is important in opera. You know, I want all the companies to get more intimate and more so people know each other and less big barn room. You know, we had our period of barn operas. You know, that the 19th century was great, but now it's time to bring that into a more intimate setting. And the Hoffman, you know, for better or worse, is it can be very intimate if it's lit correctly, right?
Yes, 100%. I mean, I think the hesitation I've had since signing on in leadership in this company has been, I don't want to sing very much. If I'm going to sing something, I want it to be just right, and I want it to be something that I already know because I know how much time it takes. So that. But I think the other piece of what's happening, certainly since COVID in the industry, is that there is this sort of openness that we're having now around artists and creators being able to do the thing that they're really talented and known for, as well as administration, as well as, you know, starting businesses and keeping things going. I mean, there used to be such shame around not fitting into a tiny little box. And I think it's beautiful that there's acceptance around the fact that a singer like Karen Slack, for instance, who I adore,
she's
a wonderful
Carrie.
soprano. She's got a talk show, basically. She's performing, she's artistic advising, she's doing all this stuff. And it's okay because she can, and she's really damn good at it.
Right.
So
it's embracing the entrepreneur that are, you know, because everyone, especially during COVID last year, had to learn to be an entrepreneur or to figure out another field entirely. Which I know quite a few singers who have like stopped singing and they've moved on. They've got real estate licenses or they've moved on to something else, but they just can't take the uncertainty because for most singers, it's paycheck to paycheck, gig to gig, you know, and so that is precarious. And so you add something like COVID and it's just not a good formula. So, but this has given an opportunity for people who still want to sing to develop an entrepreneurial skill and do other things. And I just think it's fantastic.
It's brilliant. I think our age, you know, is starting to come. A new age has dawned, and it's really about putting your money where your mouth is in your art. You know, and we know who those people. There are people who really do work at their art 24/7. They're putting out as much content and as much excitement as they can about their art. You know, and then there's those who I just go contract to contract. And unfortunately, I think that world is going to be going the way of the dodo, you know, as an acetate did. You know, I don't want to say vinyl because it came back, but I'm still holding out for the cassette tape, though. That was my era. But all that said, you know, I think it's great. I'm always encouraging singers. It's like, no, find a sponsor. Get someone to throw some money at what you're doing because they're out there now. If influencers who have no brains can do this on YouTube, then surely artists can do it as well. You know, so, you know, I've actually shifted my hats because of that. That's why I have a style magazine and a classical magazine, because I want them to go together. You know, I want to bring classical back into the home. You know, I think you guys having this evening in, you know, Walnut Creek is the definition of a bedroom community. But the thing about it is it's a bedroom community from Berkeley and Stanford. So, you know, they really get into their arts there. And I'm really glad. I mean, the Festival Opera has been around since 1991, Lord love it. And I just think, you know, it's great that it still exists in all of this craziness. And to come back in this way, you know, Zachary and Jake Jake, I just applaud you both. It's really exciting, because there aren't a lot of collaborations that can make something this special happen. Are you guys going to live broadcast any of it or do any video for those of us who would love to just be there virtually?
We will definitely be filming it, at least for archival purposes. And the issue that we have is our orchestra is a union professional orchestra, and rights and royalties and things are hoops to jump through.
Yes,
but we love them and they play great. So we want them to stay happy. So, there will be at least clips of this and that put up.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love that. I'd love that, even just to promote, if you put together a clip show or something like that.
I have to tell you, though, there is something, because before pandemic, before we knew what Zoom was or anything, when you did a recital or a performance, it was exclusively for the people in the room. And there's something very powerful and liberating about that. And when we started doing recitals online and everything, all of a sudden it's like there's this other presence in the room that is recording every little flaw, every little, and
it's your subconscious.
And so that I actually have to tell you that the idea of being in a room and having something performed just for the people who are there is really extraordinary. I did a couple recitals recently with Jamie Barton with a new program that we're doing. And it was the first one we tried out in Tucson, and there were no cameras, there was no streaming, there was no recorder. There were 100 people masked and spaced apart. And those people had tears in their eyes. We could talk to them. We could have them laugh. We could have a conversation. I could be silly with Jamie and not worry that it's being misperceived, by a camera from someone remotely. It was really remarkable. So I have to tell you, I'm actually really excited about that part of it, even though it means you don't get to be there. Sorry.
That's all right. No, and I can appreciate that very much because, that is what you love about live performance.
Yeah.
I love being in the presence of performers doing their thing. When a great performer is locked in psychologically and musically, there's nothing like it. Anyway.
Nothing like it. Nothing.
No,
I agree. What keeps me writing again and again and again. It keeps me inspired to keep writing. Are these amazing performers? Singers are so brave. I don't think people realize that these are some of the bravest musicians around. I mean, I defy any. I mean, I shouldn't go into this, but anyone who hasn't had that level of training to be responsive, interacting, following this, listening to that, moving on stage while they're performing, to get up there and do that, it's terrifying, and to trust that it will all be there. That's why singers inspire me endlessly. I have to tell you a really fun connection to Walnut Creek is I finished high school in Pleasant Hill, and my piano teacher was in Walnut Creek. And so I went to Walnut Creek regularly in my last 2 years of high school, and had performances there and won the Concord Pavilion scholarship. But I haven't performed in Walnut Creek in ages and ages. So I'm really excited to be back.
This is the time.
It sure is.
And you're back.
Sure is. Excellent. Well, I just
so
can't.
Lucky.
I can't say anything but 1,000 toys times 3 to you all. This is such a great, wonderful project, and it's August 13th and 15th.
Yes.
At the Kaufman Center in Walnut Creek, and I'll put all the details below. Oh, at the Lusher Performing Arts Center in the Kaufman Theater. No, the Kaufman Theater's in it.
The Hoffman Theater of the Lesher Center for the Arts in Walnut Creek.
Thank you.
There you go.
That's perfect. Well, I'll put links below for everyone too.
Beautiful.
And so thank you both very much for this wonderful, wonderful coming together. I laughed, I learned, and I think we hopefully will inspire people to come see you all at Festival Opera. Zachary, good luck. It's always interesting. So I always love to see a singer take the role of a general director for an opera company, because real music starts happening. I didn't say that, but
I promise.